I'm not too worried. It's a lot like what I did before. So
Okay.
plus we've been rehearsing, so I feel pretty comfortable with it. It'll probably be easier.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
you've got the handouts, right? You're not trying to go screen to screen.
right. There's Kim. Guess I better mute, huh?
Good morning, ladies.
Good morning, Kim.
Okay, I'm just going to do some functions here. So I'm just going to mute myself then. See you, Vicki, you're able to share your screen, okay? Good morning, everyone. This is Kim Ludwig. We do have still a number of people joining us. So we'll just maybe give 1 or 2 minutes here, just kind of get everybody logged in, and then Vicki will go ahead and get things started. Okay, Vicki, I think we can go ahead and get started. So welcome, everyone.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the training on Harness the Power of Inclusion Windmills training. Today's training is being facilitated by the South Dakota Division of Rehabilitation Services, the Sioux Falls Business Resource Network, and the Workforce Diversity Network of the Black Hills. The trainers are myself, Vicki Stewart, Kim Ludwig, and Katie Gresseth. The Windmills training is a disability awareness training program designed to change attitudinal barriers and create a new perspective on the skills and abilities of individuals. There are a series of interactive training modules within Windmills where participants interact with one another along with the trainers to learn the knowledge, skills, and tools to create inclusive workplaces where all employees can thrive. Before we get started, I just want to quickly go over a few housekeeping items. There is closed captioning available for the training, which appears automatically towards the bottom of your Zoom screen. Also, the training is being recorded. For those of you who need a certificate of attendance, there will be a link available in the chat box following the training with a form to complete to show that you have participated. An evaluation survey will also be available for today's training. The link will be made available in the chat box toward the end of the training. We'd love to hear from you during the training, so if you have any comments or questions, please use the chat box feature that is located on your control panel. Also, if you encounter any technical difficulties, please message Kim Ludwig directly using the chat box. With that, let's get started with our training. Katie, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Vicki, and welcome everybody. Thanks again for joining us. Today's training is for educational purposes only, and as Vicki said, we are recording it, so we'll make it available on the DRS, the BRN, and the WDN of the Black Hills websites. Today we're going to examine stereotyping, people with disabilities, and how that can impact hiring decisions. We'll also help you evaluate on a case-to-case basis job matches for a person with a disability. And finally, we'll explore assumptions of good and bad jobs for people with disabilities. We're going to do an activity. We'll go into breakout rooms in just a few minutes here. I'll give Kim time to bring up on the screen a couple of things here that we're going to look at and you can use for the breakout rooms. Okay, Kim has displayed a list of jobs that we'll be using to match with the person with the disability. The jobs include receptionist, waiter, waitress, cable television installer, security guard, warehouse worker, teacher, and mechanic. There's also a list of various disabilities that include legal blindness, dyslexia, hearing impairment, cerebral palsy, intellectual disability, bipolar disorder, and paraplegia. We're going to work together in small groups to choose the most likely job matches and least likely job matches for people with disabilities. You'll have a copy of the job and the employee profile listing the various jobs and individuals with various disabilities. You can use the two lists to make two determinations, and you can use each job and each employee more than once if you need to or you think it's best. So we want you to take and identify two combinations that seem the most likely job match, and then identify two combinations that seem the least likely job match. We'll have about 15 minutes in the breakout rooms. We made them small so that there'll be time for discussion. We'd ask if one of you would volunteer to lead the discussion and take notes. That way you can share what you discovered in your groups when we come back or if we call upon you. So with that, we'll go into the breakout rooms for about 15 minutes and we'll see you back here after that.
Okay, Katie, this is Kim. I just want to make sure that if everybody kind of understands what we are asking you to do during your breakout session. Again, just reference to the profile matrix handout, either that you received in the email last week or that I've included on the chat box. So again, you will have 15 minutes. Also, just a reminder, just to unmute yourselves if you want to talk, and then just mute yourself again when you're not talking. So with that, I will assign everyone in breakout room and just give me a minute or so here. So.
Hi, Kim. I'm trying to open the matrix.
Okay, it's not working for you. Okay, for those that are still kind of in this primary room, we can go ahead and just have a discussion. I'm going to share my screen here. Okay. So can everyone see that? Say, Linda White, are you able to hear me? See, it looks like Dawn Youthy, are you able to hear me or see the screen?
Hey, Kim, it's Dawn. I didn't join a group because I'm dealing with an employee issue right now.
Okay, sounds good. Sorry.
So
to
I'm just
interrupt you.
muting my phone.
Okay,
Sorry.
thank you. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
This is Jen. I got in late, so I'm not in a group either, and I'm fine. Just waiting
Okay.
for the next one. I'm sorry.
No, you are fine. Kind of basically what we're asking is for during the breakout sessions, as you can see on the screen, is a profile matrix. So we're asking for all of you to kind of match like the least likely job matches with the disabilities that are on the screen there, and then also the most likely job matches with kind of what we're working on now. So everyone has about 15 minutes within the breakout sessions, and we're going to come back together at a large group and have a discussion.
Okay, is this like an ongoing meeting or something? I just got a like a thing and I just signed up for it, or it's a one time.
Shouldn't be.
Okay. It was just at a different time. I was like, oh, it looks interesting.
Like, thank you for joining us. So
Everyone back from their breakout?
Not quite, Vicky. We've got some people kind of come back together, so maybe another minute here.
Okay.
Okay, I think we should have everyone back in from the breakout rooms into the large group. So welcome back, everyone. So.
All right, now I'm going to call on a few groups just to see what kind of discussion you have, which two you chose as most likely match and which you chose as least likely matches. So I will go ahead and call on group number 6. If there is a volunteer from your group that took notes.
Vicky, this is Vicky. I don't know what the number of our group was, so I.
We were 7, I think.
Oh,
think we were
sorry.
7,
Okay.
Vicky.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Yeah.
I think our group was 6, so I'll kind of go ahead.
All right, wonderful.
Yeah, so we actually kind of had trouble right away getting things pulled up, but we went ahead and went through things. Bear with me for 1 second here.
Sure.
So for receptionist, what we did for our least likely match would be Lori with the hearing impairment.
Okay.
And then for the waiter or waitress, we put somebody with cerebral palsy. So Ashley.
Okay.
A cable TV installer was legal blindness. So that would be Sue. For security guard, we ended up actually placing 2 different least likely matches, one with bipolar as well as paraplegia. And so that would be Tom and then also Wendy. A warehouse worker, we ended up putting somebody with cerebral palsy as well as paraplegia. And so Wendy again, and then also Ashley. And then mechanic, we put legal blindness as well as paraplegia. So
Hey,
Wendy, oh,
This is
sorry, go
Kim.
ahead.
I'm just recording your responses on the screen. You're on the least likely match, correct?
Correct.
Okay, could you just quickly repeat those?
Oh, sure. So receptionist, we put hearing impaired. So I'd have to. So that would be Lori.
Okay, go ahead.
And then waiter or waitress, we put somebody with cerebral palsy. And so that was Ashley. Cable TV installer, we put legal blindness.
Okay.
And so Sue.
All right.
Security guard, we actually put 2 of them in there. So we put bipolar as well as paraplegia.
Okay.
So Tom and Wendy. And then warehouse worker, we put 2 as well. So cerebral palsy as well as paraplegia.
For a warehouse worker.
Yep.
Okay.
And then teacher, we put dyslexia, intellectual disability, as well as bipolar.
Okay.
And then mechanic, we put legal blindness and paraplegia.
All
you.
right, thank you. I will go ahead and call on another group. How about number 10? Is there a representative from group number 10? There's a question in the chat box. I only have one profile matrix. And yes, that's what we're focusing on right now. It's just the profile matrix that's displayed on the screen. There is another handout that goes and breaks the disabilities out. And so we'll be getting to that further on the training. But for right now, we're just looking at anybody, not anyone with names in particular. So just for right now, we're just going off of this matrix that's on the screen. Let's go ahead and can I just get a volunteer from one of the groups who is willing to share their 2 most likely matches and their 2 least likely matches?
I can volunteer, Vicky.
Okay, great.
Okay, I was with group 7 and our least likely match for receptionist was hearing impaired because of the customer service piece. And then for our waiter, waitress, our least likely match was 3. Now we had a split between legal blindness, paraplegia, and cerebral palsy. So I guess, do we need to add, can you put all 3? I forget. You can,
Sure.
okay. Yeah, because there was different reasons why a waitress would have a little bit of trouble being a waitress, especially in like tight areas where someone, you know, maybe with paraplegia would have trouble getting around. And then legal blindness, you know, the obvious situations, unless there were some good accommodations. So we split on that one. Cable TV installer, legal blindness, we had 5 of us decided that legal blindness, because of the wires and the colors of the wires, unless they were going to be able to do something to accommodate that. And then paraplegia, we also marked 2 of us because, you know, when you do cable installing, you have to go sometimes into crawl spaces, you have to go, you know, into attics or basements and get under the spaces. So we thought that might be a challenge. Those are the 2 we marked for that, but heavily favored for TV installer. Security guard, we were, most of us were with legal blindness because of the fact that you're always needing to be looking and scanning for different types of security breaches. And one of us decided hearing impaired would be because of the need for hearing what's going on as well. But overwhelmingly, security guard was, we felt that the least likely would be legal blindness. Warehouse worker, we decided legal blindness would be the least likely match because of all the dangers and the different things going on in a busy warehouse. Teacher, we've agreed that intellectual disability would be the most difficult or the least likely match, obviously due to the need to teach at different levels to different students. And then as far as least likely match for mechanic, legal blindness. We kind of ran out of time, so I'm sort of just improvising a little bit on those last couple ones for the group. Then as far as most likely match, receptionist, we felt paraplegia would be a great match. Obviously, the sedentary position. As far as most likely match for waiter, waitress, we felt that bipolar disorder would be a good match, and also dyslexia. But the majority of us decided bipolar, but then we did also feel that dyslexia was a good match. Cable TV installer, all of us except one thought that hearing impaired would be most likely matched because it's more of a visual type of job with physical requirements, but also dyslexia. One individual thought that, but we all agreed on those two. As far as most likely match for security guard, we felt that dyslexia would be a really good match. And we also had two of us thought intellectual disability would also be a good likely match. And then under warehouse worker, most likely match, hearing impaired, because of the accommodations that could be provided in a warehouse for someone with a hearing impairment. And then as far as most likely match for teacher, paraplegia, and because it can be very sedentary. And then mechanic, we decided bipolar. So that's group 7.
All right, thanks for sharing, Vicki.
Thank you.
I think we'll go ahead and move on. I am going to turn it back over to Kim. And thank you all for participating in that exercise. Hopefully you had some good discussion amongst yourselves and learned a little more than maybe you had previously.
Okay, thank you, Vicki. And yes, thank you all for your participation and volunteering for your responses. So what we're going to do now is just kind of further discuss this exercise that we just had all of you do. And I just want to ask all of you a question. Did any of you feel uncomfortable with this exercise? And if so, would any one of you be willing to share your reasons for your discomfort? And just know there's no right or wrong answer to any of this because this is all a learning exercise. So anybody?
This is Julie.
Okay.
This is Julie Becker. I think that our group talked about maybe we were, don't take this wrong, being set up because we were thinking about, oh my gosh, we don't want to stigmatize, we don't want to limit anyone. But then we also talked about our current labor force right now, about how more and more employers would have maybe been more restrictive on someone's disability previously, but now because of the labor market, they're willing to go over and above with accommodations. And I shared how I had placed an individual with an employer who's a sex offender, they had never hired someone before that was a sex offender, but because of the labor markets, we're willing to give it a shot. So.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Anyone else want to volunteer?
This is Jenny with Independent Living Choices.
Okay.
So I just had some personal discomfort with it, considering that I would be limiting a person's ability to complete a job or do a task, because it's all very individual based. And just coming from the independent living side, where the philosophy is that the problem is not the person, rather the environment. And if you change the environment, then, there essentially is no problem. So knowing, and we did talk about that as a group, that the least likely match, we were like, well, truly, when we're thinking about it, they could all do these jobs if those accommodations and the environment was changed. They could all have success in a position if this is what they wanted to do and work towards and learn. So I just felt uncomfortable taking that ability and opportunity away from them.
That kind of goes right along with, you're just only given the disability and the position. So you just didn't have a lot of information in front of you. So it sounds like great conversation took place in the groups, and thanks to both Jenny and Julie for sharing your thoughts on the discomfort feelings. So now disability laws demand that each person with a disability should be considered on a case-by-case basis, or individual circumstances. This exercise allows all of us to explore how job matching decisions have been made in the past, and unfortunately, in some cases, are still being made today. Now, we're going to go back to the matrix and just take a look at our responses and discuss some of the reasons why we made those choices. If you notice, many of the reasons given for the most likely job match falls within two basic categories, in which include, the disability causes no real concern or has no detrimental impact on the person's ability to do the job. The second one being the disability itself seems to fit with the job. So for example, a person in a wheelchair that sits all day, or a person with a hearing impairment works around loud noises. So then we're going to go up on the document to the least likely match. And the two basic categories for the least likely job matches, the first one being the disability causes direct concern about how someone with that disability can do the job and the nature of the reasonable accommodation needed to allow him or her to do it. The second one being the disability itself seems to exclude any possibility of this matching. No accommodation would allow them to do the job. So like, for example, such as a teacher with an intellectual disability. So in the past, job selections or job matching of people with disabilities follow this type of criteria. Employers often place people with disabilities in jobs that represented the path of least resistance. The concept of disability employment laws, so when I'm referring to disability employment laws, I'm referring to the ADA as an example. And again, the disability employment laws demand that the decision to hire or not to hire includes a consideration of the potential for overcoming barriers to employment. So when dealing solely with the inability, employers will deselect rather than hire a person with a disability. So fears and concerns that cause some of us not to hire with disabilities are often based on misunderstanding, stereotypes, and our own personal perceptions about disabilities. We must remember to leave our personal perceptions out of the interaction and deal solely on a case-by-case basis with all potential job candidates, whether they have a disability or not. So I am going to turn it over to Katie. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I'm going to pull up the other handout that we are discussing today. So just give me a minute. Okay, can everyone see that okay? Okay, Katie, go ahead.
Thanks, Kim. Well, now we'll give you some information about each of the candidates, and it probably will change how you look at it. Sue, for example, with legal blindness, is legally blind in the right eye. That's 20/200 without correction, and has a 20-degree field of vision in the left eye, tunnel vision, kind of like I do. Joe with dyslexia has over time developed coping mechanisms and worked as an Air Force instructor pilot for the past 20 years. Lori with the hearing impairment has an 80% hearing loss in her right ear, and with the use of a hearing aid, it takes it down to just 10% hearing loss. Ashley with cerebral palsy has a minor impact, only affecting the left side of her body. She is right-handed and has minor shaking in her left hand. Ray with an intellectual disability has an IQ of 70, and he has completed a carpentry apprenticeship program. Tom has bipolar disorder. His condition's controlled through medication, and he only becomes nervous when working in large groups. And Wendy with paraplegia has partial paralysis that impacts the lower body, and she has the ability to work short intervals. So that gives you a whole lot more information about each candidate. Let's look at your least likely categories again and decide if you think the person with the disability could possibly perform the essential function of the job. If you decided that the candidate could possibly do the job with accommodations, with or without accommodations. So if we can have some volunteers again, look at your list of least likely and determine if that person could possibly do that job with accommodations. I'm not sure who's out there. I don't know who was in what group, but I know Debbie Lieber's out there. Who was in Debbie's group? Can you share with us maybe if you think the person that you least likely put for some of the jobs could perform the jobs?
This is Sue Newfer, and I was in Debbie's group. And I would agree that now having more information definitely is very, very beneficial in helping you make these decisions. But absolutely, now knowing about the hearing impaired, I believe that that person would be able to perform that job.
Thank you. Does anybody else want to talk about some of them, or how, now that we've given you more information, how it changes how you look at the individual?
You know, I think this is Luann Byfleet. I think that when you gave us the descriptions, because we didn't have enough information. And so with hearing aids and or medication, most of these difficulties could be overcome. And so again, I know I would have scored it differently.
Thank you. Yeah, we just didn't know enough about each person, so we were going by the disability. And that's a lot of how a lot of different businesses looked. So many times that's exactly what they say. Oh, well, I have a receptionist. In fact, I think in our last training at the end, we had the video where we talked about how many people say, oh, I've got a great job for a person in a wheelchair. And he said, well, if you've got a great job for a person in a wheelchair, go down, get a wheelchair and put somebody in it. So it's all about the person. And then if we have a concern about an applicant, you know, we have so many resources here in South Dakota. Dakota Link is one of them. I'm so grateful for them. They can help with so many different questions and accommodations. We also would like you to look at vocational rehabilitation if the person needs some accommodations, but a lot of times you can ask the person. I have a good example of an employer out here in the Black Hills that built pallets, and their HR director hired somebody that was an amputee. I believe it was his right arm was amputated, and the whole crew was like, how is he going to do the job? She said, he said he can do it. Let's just give him a chance when he starts tomorrow. Well, he came in and he put together this whole pulley system that worked amazing. And so now everybody uses it. So again, it was just that right away first thought of, oh my goodness, how would I do the job if I had that disability? I probably couldn't do it. And usually when you ask a candidate, if you're not sure if they can do something, just ask them, how would you do this? And have them show you how they would do it. And usually they do have the answers. They're problem solvers. So if there's a situation though where they're not sure and you're not sure what accommodation could be had, or where you could find the accommodation, again, Dakota Link, the rehabilitation offices throughout the different communities are great resources. We always recommend JAN, the Job Accommodation Network. And I think Kim's going to put that information in the chat box. So the basic to take away today is just don't assume something about somebody with a disability. It's just like all of us. You might think, oh, this person would be great as a receptionist, but maybe they don't even like to be with people. They do a much better job in a different position within the company. So it's all about the person, not the disability, just like any other candidate or anybody else. It's about their personality and what they're good at. So again, those stereotypes is what we try to really help you understand. And it's not just you, it's we all have them. Being legally blind, that's the first thing I think people think you're in total darkness. And there's only 5% of people that are totally blind that are in darkness. And of that 5%, only 3% use a cane or a dog. The rest of us have some vision. So that's a big one that has a lot of stereotypes around it. So with that, I'm going to give it back over to Vicki. As we wrap it up, again, we want to thank everybody that joined us today. We hope that you were able to learn some different things about people with disabilities and even some things about yourself. Vicky?
Thank you so much, Katie. If you are interested in contacting us to learn more about additional windmills training or to learn more about our organizations, please reach out to any one of us. Our contact information is listed on the slide that is displayed. Also, we have another windmills training taking place on May 25th on mental health disabilities, exploring reactions and accommodation ideas. And with May being Mental Health Awareness Month, we feel that the timing is good. And we also hear from businesses that there are a lot of mental health issues as a result of the pandemic. So we feel this is a timely topic for everyone. If you'd like to register for it, please be sure to do so. Kim will include details on the May 25th training in a follow-up email after this training. Otherwise, this does conclude today's training. Just a couple of quick reminders before we end. If you do require a certificate of attendance, please be sure to select the link in the chat box and complete the form to show you've participated to receive them. Also, the evaluation survey link for today's training is available in the chat box. Thank you so much, everyone. We really appreciate you being with us today.
Thank you.
Vicky? Vicky?
Yes.
This is Julie Becker. Say, I have been on phone. Is there any way that you could email me that link? I was driving, and so I was listening as I was doing this.
Oh, sure.
Oh, that'd be wonderful. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Bye-bye.